way for us to see chat and all that, or no? Okay, so we are live.
We are live.
All right, well, let's give people a minute to get in here. Thank you guys very much for doing this. We got Justin, Adam, Nick. I think this is the first time, guys. Well, I know this is the first time I've done one of these with Justin, and I haven't done one of these even with Adam and Nick before. So I thought I'd bring all the heavy hitters in. Thank you guys for doing it.
Yeah. Exciting. Thanks, Matt.
All right, so let's just start with this. I'll start with you, Justin, and then we'll go Nick and Adam. Just in terms, and I'll go last. Just in terms of kind of what you're hearing today, as opposed to where it was a week ago. If someone were to go, okay, I haven't been keeping up. Where are things with Mark Stoops' future with UK today? Justin, you start. What would you say?
I think that the guy that's ultimately going to make the decision is Mitch Barnhart, but I feel like I don't want to say pressure, but a green light has been given that if he were to want to make a move, I feel like he would have the support to make that happen. And as to whether he's going to or not, or whether those people would then try to encourage him more strongly to make a move, I think that's where things probably stand right now. Probably a lot on Mitch Barnhart. But I would caution
when you say have support, do you mean the money for the buyout?
I think the money, but also the board. You know, I heard somebody say that the board of trustees might have green lighted Mitch to make a move, but when I pressed, is that the board of trustees for the university, or is that the Champions Blue voting board that has 7 people on it that Eric Monday is reportedly pretty influential on? They thought it was probably more likely that, because there's a lot of people on the board of trustees that don't have anything to do with athletics. So I think that the higher ups, generally speaking, are okay with a move if that's the direction that Mitch wants to go in. And we're just gonna have to wait and see.
All right, what about Adam and Nick?
I'll let Luckett go, but I think it's kind of funny that a previously scheduled board of trustees meeting is in place for tomorrow. And
and that was already scheduled. I think that's important to say. It was already scheduled.
Yes, that was already scheduled, but I think the timing's funny. And the other part too is they're having the selection show for volleyball tonight at 6.
Yeah, that's true. Mitch normally sometimes speaks at that. I bet he won't tonight.
Yeah, like that's normally like the great little puff piece. Like I have a feeling he'll want to stay away from that selection show for right now.
Adam?
Yeah, I think Kentucky leaves the Tennessee game. They're 2-6, 2-5, whatever they were. I think there was a lot of like, we might have to make a change. Then I think he won the Auburn and Tennessee game. Then I think they entered, we're in safe mode. I think they got caught flat-footed here with these last 2 games. And I think it's created a situation where Mitch Barnhart leaves that stadium yesterday and he's got to talk to people. And so what I think's happened probably last night and today is him having these conversations, and it's figuring out where we are. If we need to move on, how are we getting this money? How are we paying it? And there's a lot of moving parts, but I think I don't think they had their ducks in a row for this. I don't think they had it planned that they were going to get blasted 89-6 over the last 2 games. And that's kind of created a situation for them.
Oh,
Matt's on mute.
Oh, wait, we lost Matt's mute. Oh, no. That's not ideal.
No, you didn't. I'm right here.
Okay, now we can hear you. There we go.
I'm just going to let you go on for a while.
Whole time. What happened? All right. I'm sorry if I lost everybody. Okay, so I'm going to summarize like 10 different sources into what I think actually happened, but knowing that like not everybody's always says the same thing. So I think after they were 2-5, the assumption was, and if anybody disagrees with any of this, feel free to jump in. I won't take it personally. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think after they were 2-5, I think the assumption from everybody involved is this is likely over and we need to start figuring out how this is going to end. Would everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Then I think when they won the next 3, there was a sense of, okay, 5-5, disaster averted. As long as we're like, we'd love to win one of these, but as long as we still as long as we don't get blown out twice, we're probably bringing him back regardless. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. That was most likely, yeah.
And then we get blown out twice. And there are a couple of people who I think are very influential who always wanted Stoops to stay. And at 2-5, we're like, what in the world are we going to do? And then 5-5 took a deep breath. And I actually talked to a couple of those people close to those people last night. And like, I sort of said, do you think he still survives this? And they were like, what? Well, I mean, that decision's been made, right? And then all of a sudden, the reality of you got flopped twice hits everybody. I think, as Justin said, there are some folks, and we'll be interested to see if we ever find out who this is. I mean, I know at least one, but it'd be interesting to see if they ever come out kind of publicly that said, hey, wait a minute. This now, there has to be a change. And Mitch, who I think is hoping to keep him, I would say almost solely for financial reasons, is now left with having to make a decision. And I agree with Justin. They're a little bit flat-footed in the sense of the decision they'd kind of been made. And I don't think anybody foresaw what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the staff thought they'd win, but I think if they thought if they'd lose, it'd be like a field goal. I don't think anybody saw that happening. Does anybody disagree with any of that sentiment I just said?
No, and I don't know if the other staff thought they were going to win like that either. In my mind,
I
Matt,
can tell you, I know one of them, and I know they didn't think it was going to be like that.
the thing is so like essentially the conversation we're having is about having your ducks in a row behind the scenes. And from what I gathered is after they won those games, instead of gearing up for a coaching search, Stoops and Barnhart were kind of gearing up for a negotiation, right? Like this was going to be a deal where Stoops was going to come to the table. It's what Mitch said after his last Board of Champions Blue meeting was, hey, we do what we do after every year. We have a conversation. Conversations are had. We see where we're at and we go from there. And I think Stoops was ready to go to the table and he was wanting to ask for more money for his roster, right? Because if he's going to win games, he needs as much money as possible to be able to buy a roster that's worth living. And I think in Barnhart's mind, it was going to be, well, what do I negotiate to give him that? Like, what's the carrot I give him out there? And I don't know if it was going to be to try to do the buyout. I don't know if it was going to try to be for him to get a general manager to make more decisions. That's like a real general manager. I think that was the most likely outcome, regardless.
I don't know that Mark Stoops ever had any leverage on any of those. Let me ask you, I'll start with you, Justin. Do you think there's any chance, like, do you think Mark Stoops, I know he wants his $37 million. Do you think he wants to be the coach at Kentucky next year? Does he want to coach football?
I'm going into the territory. I'm speculating. I'm not saying this is coming from Mark or anything like that, but I think we all know that he's looked miserable for a while now, right? And there have been ebbs and flows, but he's looked really frustrated and unhappy, and he has coexisted with the public narrative that has been swirling around him, and he's blocked it out. But when the topic comes up, he's very defensive. He's very adamant. Everything I've heard is he is adamant he's going to get his money. But earlier in the season, there was a point at which I think he might have been more flexible on how those details happen. Another thing that I've heard is Mitch, and I'm not putting words in his mouth either, but somebody reached out to me today and said that he knows that a change is going to have to happen in the near future. But does he want that to fall to the next person? And some of the mess and some of the toxic crap that goes into that, getting an SEC football coach out, does he want to put that on the next guy right after he's gone and have them start out? Or if he makes the hire, then that's a very different situation for the athletics director that comes in after him. Yeah.
And I think it's also a question of, do they already know who the hire for the new AD is going to be? Because if the hire for the new AD is in the building, then they're helping you pick the new coach. In my opinion, I'd be shocked if Mitch Barnhart's the AD when football season kicks off next year. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I think it is very unlikely he is the AD next year. I think there might be some talk. I think this is the worst time to hire a coach if you already know you're probably going to step away. So I think that's part of it as well. Let's talk about what is actually going on right now. I can tell you one thing I know is happening today, and if anybody else knows anything for sure that's happening right now, I know that Mitch has solicited opinions from some of the administration above him and from some donors about what they think they should do for the future. These are opinions I would have suggested maybe should have been gotten 2 weeks ago, but I think they thought they could put this to bed when they beat Florida. So I know those conversations are happening. I'm certain of it. They're probably happening as we're talking. They might even be watching. And hello, if you are. But does anybody else know anything like definitive? This is happening.
Not that I know. Somebody has reached out and said they expect Mitch to make some kind of statement today. I did hear that within the last hour. Yeah.
Here's what I heard. If he's coming back for sure, we likely hear tonight. And if a possibility of leaving is still out there, it goes into tomorrow. Does anybody disagree with that?
Have not heard, but in these situations, specifically with the calendar, they have to just make a decision, put it out there, and go. They just have to go. So whether it's keep him, let him go, it can't get past. Really, it can't get past today. And if you leak in the money, it cannot get past.
I would
Monday.
say if he's definitely coming back, like if there's 100% support, no chance he leaves, you find out tonight. If I go to bed tonight, if we get to 8:30 and there's not a statement, then I think it's really about, Nick, at that point, who wins the backstage conversations. Because there's no way they let everybody go to bed tonight if he's definitely coming back and they don't say something. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because, to Luckett's point, I know a lot of the frustration, a lot of the reason why people are ready to move on is because you look at what everybody else is doing, whether it's Vandy, Indiana, you see Florida hiring Summerall. We saw what happened this morning, right? Like it's chaos in the SEC.
Yeah.
So
I think that tier of coaches, like, I don't know what you all think. Like, I think all those things that just happened were going to happen no matter what. Yeah. Now there's going to be other jobs come open and there's going to be like a second process. And honestly, I don't know if it makes a ton of difference if it's tonight, Monday, or Tuesday to start that process. Because you probably weren't getting any of these guys, Justin, that that got jobs right now anyway.
Right. I think they have more good, plausible candidates than they've ever had before.
Me too.
And not only that, but when you look at the sport as a coach, this is the moment when you're like, heck yeah, I can go to Kentucky and do something. That's everybody else is doing it. So, you look at the guys that have been floated, and it's pointless to talk about names until we know about Stoops. But I start thinking Will Stein, Dan Mullen, the names that are floated. Who are you going after if you're committing to pay $35+ million? Are you paying $35+ million to buy out the winningest coach in your school's history, to hire a 36-year-old offensive coordinator who has only ever been at a massive talent advantage relative to the teams he's played against?
Oh, you don't sound like a pro Will Stein guy.
I would get on board and certainly give him a chance to prove to me that he's the right guy. And the fact that he has that job says something. You don't become Oregon's offensive coordinator unless you're very well regarded. But it leaves a lot to the imagination.
Okay,
when you have somebody out there. Yeah.
I'm big time pro Will Stein.
Yeah.
You seem more hesitant. Well, let me ask you a question, Justin, because Nick and Adam, I think you guys are pro Will Stein. Am I right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. There's some infrastructure questions they're going to have to address, most notably front office and how they structure this, no matter who the coach is moving forward, that I'm curious and that I think could put the coach at a disadvantage if they don't hit it right. But I think Stein as a target, to me, he's a year away from being a Penn State target, from being a Florida target, from being Michigan target or whatever. At Kentucky, they have to be early to market on these guys.
They do.
So you've got to take a swing. And if you miss, you fire him in 3 years and you go take another swing. That's kind of how you have to look at it, in my opinion.
Justin, let's say you were the AD. Let's say the job comes open. Well, let's actually start. If you were the AD with the set of circumstances as it is today, would you get rid of Mark Stoops?
Yeah. I'd get rid of. I'd probably move on from Stoops and go hire. People don't want to hear it. I think Mullen makes a ton of sense, but
So
I'd
you
probably
would hire
try to.
Dan Mullen. Explain.
I try to
people
hire
the case
Brian Kelly, Matt. I try to hire Brian Kelly, but Dan
Brian
Mullen
Kelly.
would be
Okay.
really good as well. So yeah.
So let's say you could have either of those guys. Who would you take?
Kelly would be at the very top, but I think Mullen would definitely take the job. And Mississippi State is as close to an exact scenario that Kentucky is going to be in anyways. And then you throw on that he did have good teams at Florida and he's winning against the odds at UNLV right away. And so he just checks a ton of the boxes, and it would be like, wow, like Kentucky really turned that guy down. They went in a different direction. I would be surprised, but Mitch has surprised before.
Nick, Adam, Brian Kelly, and Dan Mullen. Thoughts?
So you have to look personality fit with, hey, who's Mitch Barnhart going to hire, right? Like, we probably didn't have Mark Pope high enough on our list because of the personality fit.
Yeah.
So for me, Kelly is immediately out for that reason alone. And Mullen's tricky because the Mississippi State success was pre-NIL. And I mean, I know he took 3 years off. Now he's in Vegas. It matters there, but it doesn't matter as much. Like that part worries me. But the other part is Scott Strickland, and like, will Scott Strickland give Mitch, who used to work for Mitch, will he give Dan Mullen stamp of approval? Like, I don't know how. I know things got ugly with Mullen and the fan base at the end of Florida because of that recruiting line and all that stuff, but I don't know what it was right with Strickland. But I'm more of the favor of like, hey, take a shot on somebody instead of a retread hire, because like, I know Rich Brooks worked out, but it took a while to get there, right?
Yeah,
and they took a shot with
What about
Stu.
you, Adam?
I'm pretty against retreads, most form of fashion for Kentucky. I think this is a job for an ascending coach. I think for Kentucky, you have to look at it like we have a chance to hit big here.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be willing to take a big swing.
And unlike in the past, Adam, you can hit it big with a young assistant and you can keep them. Used to be, if you got somebody like that, the moment they had a chance, they'd leave. And now we've seen that Kurt Signetti stayed and Clark Lee stayed, and all these guys will actually stay, whereas I don't think they used to do that. Lane Kiffin aside.
I think there's a void in the market for coordinators right now because everyone wants head coaching experience because of everything the job requires. So I think for Kentucky, you're adding value to your process if you're willing to hire a coordinator there. I think Mullen, I think you can really, when you draw it out, it makes a ton of sense on paper. He was at a Mississippi State. He knows the league very well. He did as well as anyone in Florida since Urban Meyer. It kind of went away from him, but the reasons it got away from him aren't reasons it wouldn't work now. It was basically just a recruiting high school recruiting thing, which is less important at a place like Kentucky than it is going to be at a Florida or an LSU or whatever. So I think there's reasons to believe there. I just don't. I like the high upside swing more in this situation. I think for Kentucky, they don't need to swing low and just let's be competitive and let's go 7-5.
Yeah, I think we just got like 15 minutes. So I want to go through some quick questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat. I don't know how that works. Steven says he'll put something up. Let's do this. We always talk about who makes these decisions. Let's talk specific names. All right. So who are the people that you think are on these phone conversations today? Okay. So, because I think a lot of people don't even know who these people are, especially people that are probably watching this. Yeah. All right. So Mitch Barnhart is one. I think it's fair to say Mark Hill, who's the assistant AD, and Rachel Baker, who's the assistant AD, are probably part of it. Most people might not even know who those two people are, but I think they are certainly part of this. Then there's this new name that we all learned, or at least I learned a few months ago, Eric Monday, who's likely to be the next president of the University of Kentucky. I think that probably happens the next year or two as well. He has a big role. Then there will donors. I don't like mentioning individual donors because a lot of these people have private lives. I think the crafts you have to mention just because people, their names on things. So people know that the crafts exist. Do you think there are other people, guys, that are part of this? And you don't have to say their names. As a matter of fact, if they're private donors, I don't really think you should. But Justin, do you think there are other people besides those people I mentioned that will play a big role in the next however many hours in making that decision?
Yeah, people just Google the Champions Blue Club, the president's inner circle for dealing with athletics. Those 7 voting members, and Mitch is in that group, but he's not a voting member. They would definitely be important, and whichever way Monday wants to go, I would say that's going to be pretty influential. But as far as the donors, I mean, not poo-pooing anybody else, but I think the Crafts are the donors that would be, the ones that would come in and have the clout to move it from one place to another. That's what I would say about that.
I would say this about, and I would never speak for them,
Right.
but they will not be. I'd be shocked if they were the people who moved him out. I'm not saying they would keep him from, like, I'm not saying like they're going to lay on the tracks, but this is not like this will not be pushed by them. I would be shocked if that were the case. So I'm saying, so if it's going to be pushed by somebody, I don't think it's going to be them, and I don't think it's going to be Mitch Barnhart. So it's got to be somebody else. And let's remember, Rachel Baker and Mark Hill work for Mitch Barnhart, so it's probably not going to be them. So you're talking about, let me read you the Champions Blue Board just for people to know. Eli Capilouto, Eric Monday, George Wright, he's an advisor to the university, Rob Edwards, and then there are Jacob Tammy, former UK player, Shannon Arvin, that's the president of Keeneland, Chris Prindeville, that's the former vice president of Fanatics. Oddly, I met with that guy when I was doing my deals, trying to figure out who I was going to do gambling with. He was in that meeting, and I don't know how he ended up on this thing. Also, non-voting members, Mitch Barnhart and Paul Archie from JMI. I think JMI is relevant, but not really, because they just got to make their money back. So so it's interesting that the president of Keeneland, Jacob Tammy, and of the Fanatics guy. That's interesting to me. Like, those are the 3 non-UK people involved, Nick, Adam.
I do want to say, when they hired Stoops, Mitch brought Tim Couch in. Tim Couch was a big part of that search.
Big part of it, yeah.
So I think Tammy is positioned there.
Yeah.
I haven't heard this, but I think he's positioned to play a role here.
That's fascinating. Like Jacob Tammy, like, who knows? The Jacob Tammy just online has been very critical before this role, of play calling and decision making. Now, he hadn't said anything since he joined Champions Blue, but you go back to before that, he was one of the former players, very much sort of like, what are we doing on stuff? Just, that's an interesting thing, but go ahead, Nick.
I would just say that Mark Hill is probably Stoops' greatest admin ally in the building. That's worth noting. And like I said, I wouldn't speak for him either, but all the impressions I've gotten from Joe Kraft, Kelly Kraft, LLC, is that they are not in the business of paying for buyouts. They're in the business of NIL players and buildings. So I've always thought if Kentucky was going to have to do this buyout, it was going to be without Mark Stoops' probably greatest funding ally as well.
I think it's easy for people, when it comes to the Crafts, I think it's easy for people to sort of demonize them for like the fact that they were very involved in politics and all that. And look, I couldn't be more opposed to most of their politics. But I'll say this about the two of them. In my dealings with them, they really do care about the University of Kentucky. Yeah. They really do care about University of Kentucky athletics, especially Joe. And like, I agree with you. They are not in the business of like just spending money for the sake of doing it, but they want to do what matters, what they think matters for the university. And I'll even go further. I think, because they both came from small town, like they kind of want to know what BBN thinks. I'm not saying please don't like reach out to them. I don't think that would help, but I'm just saying to you, it's very easy to demonize them. And I'll just tell you this, if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have even had programs the last few years. Like Justin, I mean, you know that, like we wouldn't have had, forget about football program, basketball program, like there wouldn't be anything.
There's things you can say about anybody. And if you talk about politics, there's anything you can say. But you take the Crafts out of the situation and you don't want to know the place that Kentucky is going to be in. And Auburn would be much better off if their boosters behaved like the Crafts than the way their boosters do behave. And the Crafts, they're not going to push this on Stoops. I wouldn't assume, but I do think there could be kind of, if it gets to that in negotiations, a wink and a nod from Stoops where he says, okay, I'm okay if you guys get involved. So I could definitely see that.
And remember, they got involved in football because of Mark Stoops.
Yeah.
They did not give money in football until Mark Stoops. So, that for what that's worth. All right. So let's make, if you have questions, put them. I know Stephen, there have to be questions. There's 10,000 plus people on here. Someone has to have written a question. So throw some, explain the JMI deal and the reservation, its ability to work. Love this question. Let me do it quickly. And then Justin, I want your take on it. We'll just kind of questions go around. JMI is now technically in charge of NIL. I hate it. Like, not because it won't work, but like, I don't know what experience they have in doing that. They kind of think that's the future. The university and its partner kind of do all the NIL rather than having private collectives do it. My thing about the private collective, Justin, is that like those were business people and they were used to negotiating contracts. And in the case of basketball, our guy was used to negotiating with agents because he was a money manager and they knew what they were doing. And I don't know if you get these people who are doing something else and all of a sudden have them sitting in rooms with high school kids and agents. I don't know how that's going to work. What do you think?
Whatever football says about it, they got to be on board with it now. But I understood that Mark and Vince fought them about bringing NIL in-house with JMI for an extensive period of time. And the reason was it was the other collectives that were actually getting guys paid. And so when UK is trying to bring it in-house with JMI, but it's these other people that are feeling like they're getting cut out and they're the ones that are producing the results. That's one thing. Like a lot of these people with the collectives, there was kind of this, people didn't trust them. Like, what's their angle? Are they shady characters? But those people, they came with serious resumes and credentials and they were doing good work. And you hear some of the names Kentucky almost brought in from the portal. So like that infrastructure is in place. And UK just needs to gain trust with the JMI thing because that's the context. They in the football program did not trust the effort to bring it in-house with JMI. So they're going to have to produce results in order for people to buy in.
I'm very skeptical about the JMI NIL thing. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. Adam, I want it to work, but I don't know.
If the SCORE Act does not get passed, I worry they're in deep trouble.
I hate the SCORE Act, but
that's what they're banking on, Matt. That is what they're banking on.
What's crazy about the SCORE Act, and that's a whole other conversation, is that started as a way for the ACC and Big 12 to catch up money-wise to the SEC and Big 10. They wanted to pool the TV rights so the SEC and Big 10 did not make as much money. But it has now evolved into this act. I literally was talking with a congressman from out of state yesterday about it. It has now evolved into something else, which is basically colleges trying to restrict NIL. And the problem is it's going to be a hard time passing it. But what's interesting is initially the SEC opposed it because it was taking away their advantage. And then because of Mitch Barnhart, the SEC is now for it. And the SEC is trying to flip it. Mitch Barnhart has like completely flipped the SEC's position, and it's for the reason Adam's talking about. And again, it's a perfect example of Mitch. Like it's your personal belief, but in the short term, you're right. There's no reason
to have that all in house right now. Zero
It's
reason.
not going to work. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I was just going to say that they're the only ones doing that right now. It makes sense that like you don't need to. They put the cart before the horse for no reason. And I just realized that this happened right before we went live, but man, it's heartbreaking that Kentucky lost one of the JUCO commits, Damari Williams, who committed like 2 days ago, and now he's decommitted. So,
well, that's interesting though, because he just committed 2 days ago.
Yeah, just committed, and a JUCO push.
But I mean, like if you committed to a staff,
yeah.
I mean, 2 days. That's interesting. Now maybe he just didn't like what he saw in the Louisville game. I don't know, but
Maybe as we kind of round this in a circle, maybe we kind of do the hypotheticals one way or another because.
Well, no, wait a minute. I'm going to end with everybody predicting what's going to happen.
Okay.
So let's hang on. What names besides Stein, Hartline, and Mullen would get you most excited? So this is more like who are the people out there, and all three of you will know this better than me. Who are the people out there that we don't know their names that you think would be good head coaches? Justin, you lead off.
There's a lot. I mean, you just look at the Big 12 and the ACC. First off, you can say, could a coach realistically take $2 million more a year to come into the SEC as it's going to professional route with the Big 10 and the SEC? Yeah, maybe you could make that pitch. I said Brian Kelly. You know, there's ample number of guys like that. Similar situation to James Franklin. I know Adam's kind of against the retreads. Yeah, I would be more focused on Dan Mullen. That's my personal belief, is that he checks so many boxes, it would be unwise to let him get away.
Adam, is there some random ass coach or coordinator that you know?
Well, let me get one before you do, Luckett, because I'm sure you've got more. Kane Womack is the Alabama defense coordinator. He was at Indiana with DeBoer, and then he was big rivals with Summerall when Summerall was at Troy. Womack was he's a defensive-minded coach. He was at South Alabama, and then when DeBoer got the job at Alabama, he's like, this G5 thing's hard. Let me go back to being a defense coordinator.
So he was the head coach at South Alabama?
He was, and he's been DeBoer's defensive coordinator for the last 2 years. So maybe he's ready for the step up. You just saw Pete Golding get promoted. So that one I think would be on the short list.
Adam?
Ask whoever recommended Liam Cohen. Ask whoever recommended Cohen to be offensive coordinator.
Mark,
there you go. Yeah.
I mean, you remember how that worked. Mark, yeah, he was good. But go ahead, Adam.
You go back to last year, North Carolina had their search. The 3 finalists were John Summerall, Tommy Rees, and Glenn Schumann before Belichick.
I don't know who those people are.
Glenn Schumann's Georgia's defensive coordinator. Okay. Kirby Smart hired him when he was 24 years old to be a full-time coach at Georgia. He's been their defensive coordinator the last 3 years, 35 years old. Tommy Rees was with Notre Dame with Brian Kelly, became Brian Kelly's offensive coordinator at 28 years old. Then Nick Saban hired him, was there, and then he was kind of out of a job. He's with the Browns right now, but it sounds like he's going to be interested to come back to college potentially. Those are 2 young, ascending coaches who have checked a lot of boxes and have been ahead of the curve, I think, just in their career arc, that I think would be interested in a job like Kentucky.
Let's do one more question, and then I'm going to get everybody to make a prediction. What's the last question there, Stephen? You got something? See, I can't see the question, so I have no way of
here we go. With the Crafty more lane to support, they have a hand in supporting front office development.
They don't want to do any of that. They don't. They again, this is part of why I give them a lot of respect. They are not meddlers at all. They are not. I know when they hired Mark Pope, the last person that was talked to was them. They were not given names. They were not like I think this is what I think makes them such good donors for the university. They write the check, but they don't get in the mess. And Justin, Adam, Nick, like that's not something other donors do.
Right.
And I think that's part of why I have a lot of respect for the way they handle it, to be honest with you.
100%.
Generally speaking, do we think that a front office element is required?
Yes.
No matter if, yeah. Okay. I'm kind of with you.
With that, no matter what, they need to hire a GM.
Yeah.
And yes. And there's a guy who played at Kentucky named Champ Kelly, who's bounced around the NFL, who's going to be without a job here because he's the Dolphins interim GM. They're going to hire a new GM. What Florida just did was basically go hire the Eagles number 3, Dave Caldwell, who had ties to Florida. That guy is right there, like potentially someone they could get.
It's right there.
Justin?
I think it's important to do that because it seems like everybody else is doing that. But I know Bill Belichick came into North Carolina promising this massive NFL operation. And what does that look like now? So, I mean, as long as you have good, talented people, I don't know if the titles and the actual organization matters a whole lot. But yeah, that's the era we're in. They're going to have a GM. We don't know who. I thought they did a good job of evaluating and trying to get guys out of the portal this last year. I think they're just going against momentum. A new guy gives the momentum going in the other direction.
Does Barnhart and the rest of the admin understand how upset the fans are? No, but now they do. I think a consistent theme of the Barnhart era is they look the other way, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, where'd y'all come from?" And I think I think that in some ways that has happened. I think a lot of people started getting phone calls yesterday evening that they did not expect to come. And that so makes it a little clueless. I saw an online poll. Granted, I do not believe in online polls. I don't think they're representative. But it was, do you want to see UK make a change? And it was 94-6. Now, I don't think that's representative, but it also ain't nothing when it's 94-6, right? Like that's something. All right, I'm going to start with you, Nick, and then go around. Nick, Adam, then Justin, and I'll finish. Tuesday, who is the coach of the University of Well, is Mark Stoops the coach?
I'm ready for a change, but I'm pessimistic. I said it in a mini meltdown earlier. I think when given the chance, Mitch Barnhart would prefer to do nothing rather than something. That's been the case for a very long time now because he's been the athletic director for a very long time. I think he would prefer doing some sort of reinvestment strategy. Says we're going to get a GM, we're going to put money in NIL, we're going to give Mark one more chance, even though I don't think it's the right idea. I don't think it's the best idea, but I think that's the one he's gonna do.
So you think he will be the coach?
I think Stoops is staying. Yeah.
All right, Adam.
I think we're covering a coaching search on Tuesday. I think it's very close to a 50-50 decision for Barnhart. I actually think his gut will be to want to keep him, but I think there's going to be all this pushback. And I think, Matt, when you write this stuff out on paper and when you start going down, okay, we owe this, this, and this, you're not saving really anything if you bring him back. I just think you've got it's reached the point where I think it's just a hard sell, and it's how do you even get the fans back after what just happened these last two games? So I think they move on, and we're covering a coaching search. I think reluctantly Mitch doesn't. It'll be a little out of character move for him, but I think when push comes to shove, they're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off.
Justin.
I'm with you. They got 7 expiring assistant coach contracts. You got to fill out your staff. That you got a JUCO decommitting, and that's like the linchpin of your strategy down the stretch. Donors are going to be reluctant to give because what's the return been the last few years? I just objectively looking at the circumstances, any other SEC athletics department would make the move. At Kentucky, I understand the reluctance to open up the pocketbook because you're basically resourcing 2 power conference football programs at UK, and maybe North Carolina, a couple other places that's the case for. So it's always going to be really hard, but I just don't think they can get away with running it back. It's just been too bad for too long. And you can't keep kicking the can down the road and telling the football fans just to eat it when they had to deal with mediocrity and lack of investment for so many decades. This would set the program and the perception of the program back a really long time if he essentially said, you guys just have to eat it for another year.
So you think gone?
I think he's gone. Yeah.
All right. So I think when I was on Matt and Myron at like 10 a.m., we were about to start, and Myron says, will Mark Stoops be the coach next year? And I said, I kind of think yes, but I don't know. I think it's close. Every hour that goes by that there is not an announcement makes me think it's more and more likely something's happening. Because if you were going to bring him back, what are you waiting on? Like, what are you waiting on? Like, nothing's changing. If you're going to bring him back, and they're sometimes tone deaf, but they know. I mean, they know we're doing this. Like, they know they need to like stop the conversation. I now am leaning towards joining Justin and Adam and thinking something's going to happen. Now that's not scoop. That's just knowing the mindset of how they think. And if we get to, let's just say 9 o'clock, because I don't think they're going to release anything after 7 or 7:30. If we get to after that, okay, so the volleyball thing's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because Mitch has got to probably say something because they're hosting volleyball, right? Because they're going to host throughout the first round. So let's get through the volleyball. Let them have their moment. And if we don't hear anything after that, then I think tomorrow's going to be a busy day. That's just my take. But we'll find out. Nick is the pessimist.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Depends on how you look at it.
Depends on how you look at it. Hey, first, thank you guys very much for doing this. I hope Justin is now part of Rivals, is now kind of paired with On3. So hopefully we can do more of this kind of stuff. And guys, thanks for popping in on a Sunday afternoon.
Thanks a lot, guys. Good to see you.
Good luck, everyone. Yeah.
All right. Buckle in.
Everyone stay sane.